Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Chabone, Head of Communications for the Americas region. And before we kick off our town hall today, I just want to take a moment to orient you to how we're going to engage those of you who are remote in our Q&A process and throughout the meeting. So we will be using Slido today. I know many people are familiar with that, but for those who may not be, just a reminder on how that works. On your screen, you should be able to see a QR code, which you can use a mobile device to scan. You see a passcode there. If it requests a passcode from you, it may not. But if it does, the passcode is 12548820. Or if you want to use a web browser, you can connect to slido.com and enter the same passcode. So we'll leave that slide there for a moment, allow you to log in. During the meeting today, we will be using both polling and Q&A to do our Q&A process later in the meeting, with a poll about midway through the meeting. So please keep your Slido going. Throughout the meeting, you can enter questions and we will get to those at the end. For those of you who are familiar, you might be remembering that you can upvote other questions that you see if you'd like that to be asked, and we'll make an attempt to answer as many questions as we can. And we'll also do a poll. So to get us started and ready to engage, we're going to practice the poll right now. I think you all saw the video, and I'm sure those of you who are history buffs are going to remember all the facts. So let's go to our first Slido question. In what year was Fritz Henkel born? So in your Slido, you should be able to see that question. For those of you who think you remember, please answer a question. If you don't remember, just give it a good guess. You should be able to vote now. We should be able to see the poll on your Slido. It looks like there's some pretty strong feelings about the first answer, 1848, trending nicely. Bit of a minute for a little bit more engagement. Let's pass at least 100 answers here. Okay, great. So let's test your memory. Fritz Henkel was born in 1848. So very good. Thank you, everybody. Now let's bring it a little bit fast forward into the future and into our market to some things we know about. Let's go to the next question. In what year was Persil launched? You can see your choices there, 1899, 1907, 1917, or 1928. Go ahead and cast your vote. Once again, some strong alignment among our teams. I like that. Good progress on the voting. Thank you for entering your thoughts. Okay, looks like people are thinking 1907. Let's see if the memory is good. 1907 it is, the Persil brand. Okay, and of course we need to also ask ourselves a little bit about our other business, the adhesives business. So when did we start selling adhesives at Henkel? You can see your choices there, 1889, 1900, 1913, or 1923. Cast your vote. Again, sort of strong polling around one answer. You guys are good with your company history. Very impressive. Okay, looks like most of you think 1923. How do we do? Let's see the result. Very good. Henkel started selling adhesives in 1923. So we showed you the video not only to test your knowledge and get you engaged in Slido, but to make sure you're in the tool. You can enter questions throughout the meeting anytime you like. You can upvote other questions, and we will come to those at the end of the meeting. So now that we're ready to go, I'd like to actually turn it over to Steve to officially kick off our meeting. Over to you, Steve Essick, our Region President.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for the engaging reminder of our pioneering founder, Fritz Henkel. And a big thank you to everyone who's joining us today in this event for all employees. We do have a full agenda today. It includes a panel discussion on our culture and leadership commitments. I'm not standing in front of you. Okay. A financial update, a short one, business updates from both adhesives and Henkel Consumer Goods, and a DEI update. And as we usually do, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. As Jenny mentioned, Slido is already live, and you should be able to submit questions throughout the session. So let's begin with a recap on the North America ExCom and recently announced leadership changes. First, Stefan Moon, Regional Head of the Henkel Consumer Brands Professional Business, was going to be with us today, but unfortunately is unable to join because of a last-minute family situation. So he wanted to be here, but unfortunately is not able to join us today. Also, Bob McNamee, Senior Vice President and Chief Legal Counsel, and Jenny, who you just saw, Vice President of Corporate Communications, are continuing as members of the ExCom. So with approximately 30 years of combined experience working in Henkel, North America, they have provided valuable cultural insights to our ExCom over the last 5 years. And secondly, the changes, some of which have already happened and others that will be taking place between now and August. On a personal note, I will be retiring in early July, a couple more weeks. After 27 amazing, sometimes challenging, but always rewarding years with Henkel. Someone once gave me good advice early in my career. Don't run away from anything, but run towards something. And I can honestly say that I'm running towards some interest beyond work. I also want to say very clearly that I am confident in the future of Henkel North America. And I'm excited to introduce to you the leaders who will join Stefan, Bob, and Jenny on the North American ExCom. So those leaders, from whom we will hear in a moment, are Pernilla Lynn Olsen, who is head of adhesives for North America, and she'll also take over as the Henkel North American president. She'll take over that role from me. Phil Schaefer, who joined us earlier this month to lead the North America Henkel Consumer Brand consumer business. Martijn Verreek, who will lead the North America finance team, taking over for me in that role. And Valeria Gladstein, who will join or replace Frank as North America head of HR when Frank relocates to Germany to continue and be fully dedicated to his global role as head of HR regions. It's important to note that we emphasize speed in bringing this town hall today, so you can meet these leaders, even while we're still in transition. So the team is coming together in real time. We thought it was important for you to hear from the ExCom about our continuing commitment to Henkel culture, while also ensuring that together we bring you a mid-year update about Henkel in North America. Now I would like to officially welcome the leaders joining the North American ExCom and ask them to introduce themselves. Pernilla will begin, and then Phil, Martijn, and Valeria will follow.
Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you for serving the company for 27 years. You made a great impact on the company and also on the North American ExCom last couple of years. So a little bit about myself. My name is Pernille. It's a Danish name. I'm born and raised in Denmark. And I am serving right now as the divisional head of our packaging and consumer goods division in adhesives. I'm also heading up adhesives in North America, as well as the two focus areas in adhesive, customer excellence and strategic marketing, and will take over the role as president of North America when Steve retires. So I've been with Henkel since 1st of January last year. And prior to that, I spent my time in two Danish companies, global but Danish. First with Novozymes, which is a Danish biotech company. It is also a supplier of Henkel. So I had a short stint as the account manager for Henkel, serving the laundry business and selling industrial enzymes to the laundry business back some years back. And that way I knew Henkel and also knew that I would join a team of great and dedicated and very experienced colleagues when I joined last year. After Novozymes, I worked 8 years with a industrial coatings company. So thick layers of coatings for thick surfaces of steel on ocean-going vessels and bridges and wind turbines. And as I said, I joined Henkel 1.5 years ago. When I joined Henkel, I headed up the metals business. So it's the metal can business, it's general industry, lots of different parts for construction, vehicles, etc., and coil. That SBU that I joined has now been moved into different homes, and I will go a little bit through later on the changes that we have been doing in the adhesive part of the business. When I come to work, I'm usually driven by a couple of key questions. The first one is, what is the problem at the customer we are trying to solve with our business? The adhesive team that I work with will know that I ask that question quite a lot, so that we focus on what we do for our customers. And I also spend quite a lot of time with the team, because I believe that we all have potential, and if we dare, together we can unlock that potential, and in particular if we play together as teams. And then finally, I'm driven by the fact that I am very, very conscious about us handing over to the next generation. I have 2 kids. You see them on the mid picture. It's Otto, he's 24. He studies natural resources and environmental economics. So he reminds me about the planet we live on a daily basis. And Vera is 19. She just graduated high school a couple of days ago. As I said, I'm Danish. I'm married to Eric. We have lived in Denmark. I also lived in Iceland. We spent some years in Singapore with one of my previous companies. I am currently based in Germany, but I will be relocating to the US. I will be relocating to the Bridgewater office in New Jersey. So with that, over to Phil.
Thank you, Pernille. And before I introduce myself, I want to give a big thank you to everyone here in the room, but also on the line, for the warm welcome. You know, it's my 3rd week on the desk, and it's truly unprecedented how warm the welcome felt. And after 3 weeks, I already feel like I'm part of the Henkel family. So big thank you for that. On the slide, what you see is what you get. I'm a family guy. You see my daughter, she just turned 3, Mia. I actually brought her to the office yesterday, and my wife, Medita, and my parents. So all my free time I try to spend with them, just because that's what gives me energy. For my intro today, as you can imagine, over the last couple of days and weeks, I've introduced myself a fair bunch. So I wanted to give you some color and sort of the things that you won't find when you look up my LinkedIn profile. Number one is, I think in a dictionary next to global citizen, you would probably find my name soon. Between my wife and I, we have now lived in 5 different countries, and we live in English-speaking countries over 10 years now, but we love the US. This is what we call home now. So overall, we have lived 8 years in the US now, and we truly like that. Actually, we inherited that to a certain extent from my parents as well. They were expats back in the days in Pakistan and Morocco. The second anomaly on my resume that I want to point out is that I'm not the typical CPG, FMCG guy that you would most often find starting like a trainee program or a junior role in the industry. I actually started my career in retail. Aldi, I think everyone knows, the world's largest discounter, and Edeka, Germany's largest retailer. What that has equipped me with is a very good understanding cross-functionally, what are our customers actually all about? What do they expect from us when it comes to products, supply chain reliability, communication, and marketing efforts? So it actually served me really well. But as you can imagine, the pivot then into the CPG, FMCG industry was quite a steep learning curve. But I spent almost a decade with Kellogg through various roles and functions. And my last gig there was leading their frozen business unit in the US. So it's mainly the brands Eggo and Morningstar Farms. The third fun fact about me that you for sure won't find on LinkedIn is I'm a water guy. So it is almost impossible to find a picture of me without water in the background. And this was not staged, but you see it on this slide as well. All my free time I try to spend on the water, in the water, around the water, fishing, sailing, boating, swimming, all of the above. It just does something magic to me and to my family, and we truly enjoy that. The other question that I get asked most often here in the office, when are you relocating? Are you relocating? Yes, I have no intentions to handle a 10-hour drive between Michigan and Stamford. So our house is up on the market since last week. So if anyone is interested, please shoot me a message. But all kidding aside, yes, we are house hunting desperately right now and hope to move this summer. So again, thank you for the very warm welcome. And with that, I hand over to Martin.
Yes, thanks, Phil, thanks a lot. And of course, like some of the pictures suggest, and like my name is suggesting, I'm Dutch actually, so it's Martijn. Martin will do the job as well, because I know also perfectly well that Martijn obviously is not the most easy thing to pronounce for non-Dutch people. 15 years with the company. So in this 15 years, I've been working in different professions, right? So controlling finance strategy, I was in beauty care, I was in laundry, I was in corporate. I've been pretty much, counting a bit back, I would say 60% of the time I was in the countries and 40% of the time in headquarters. And of course, I'm actually very happy now also to be back in the country and in the region again. Like I said, I'm born in the Netherlands, but lived besides the Netherlands in Denmark and Belgium, in Germany, and 2 times in Russia. Of course, I will relocate to the US. That's absolutely clear. There's only one thing that stands in between me relocating to the US and today, which is that we are expecting a first child. So we are expecting that she will be born in August. And of course, afterwards, as soon as we can, we will move probably by the end of the 3rd quarter. Another thing about me, like one of the pictures suggesting as well, you know, I'm a passionate runner. So I typically get up in the morning quite early to go for a run. And I also just found some other ExCom colleagues who will join me also for running. So I'm also very happy with this, Bob. So look forward for that. Besides this, I enjoy traveling, spending time obviously with family, friends, but also with our dog, which you see in the bottom, which is a lovely Italian greyhound. I mean, she's by now close to 1 year. So it always keeps us up at night, but also keeps us very, very excited. Look forward, of course, to meet all of you. I met a lot of people this week, but of course, look forward to meet all of you. And I want to give also a big thank you to Steve and the team for the warm welcome this week. And I can sincerely say that I take over a great team. So a big thank you to Steve for this. Having said that, of course, Valeria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Martijn. Hello, everyone. Hello, North America. I am very happy to be here today in my first North American town hall. I am Valeria Gladstein. I am originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So the very south of this America's continent. I have a bachelor degree in industrial relations, where I also continue as university professor for some years after I graduated. And I also did some postgraduate studies in business for combining this HR perspective. Although I started working after finishing high school as a cashier, admin, salesperson, and even owning my own company in a fashion clothes industry, I started my HR career at Fiat Group, the automotive Italian company. I also moved to BASF, a large German company, a chemical company, and finally, almost 17 years ago, I landed at Henkel in Argentina initially, where I started my journey. And I had the chance to craft my career internationally within Henkel, and I had different HR, local cluster roles in Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil, all the countries also where I lived in. I also had the chance to move to headquarters in Germany as global head for talent acquisition and learning. And I am currently back in Mexico as head of HR for Latin America since almost 3 years. In all this journey, I was not alone. I am married to Victor already 20 years of, I can say, happy marriage. And he was and he is still a key pillar for ensuring all these changes successfully happen. And my 2 kids, Olivia, that was born in Mexico and currently a complete teenager, and Tommy, that was born in Colombia, and he will turn 10 years old on Monday. So a bit more about myself. I really enjoy spending time with my family and also my friends. And even better when I can combine also with some of my passions like traveling. Summer destinations usually are my favorite ones. Playing and watching tennis. Looking forward now to the US Open coming. And yes, wining and dining. So we are all very much looking forward to this new chapter in our life in US. We will arrive mid of July to Connecticut, where we are going to be relocating, and I will start the new role that Frank is giving me as head of HR North America as of the 1st of August. I will be based in Stamford, and for sure we'll have the chance to visit many of our sites in North America and get to know you. So looking forward to collaborating and connecting with all of you very soon. And now let's go back to Stephen.
So thank you all for introducing yourselves. And again, a very warm welcome on behalf of all of us in North America. So I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank Frank for his leadership and really significant contributions to Henkel in North America over the past few years. And in his global role, he'll continue to have impact on all regions, including North America. And Frank, I just want to say it's really been a pleasure working with you. I think you've done a great job supporting North America and wish you all the best in the global role. You'll continue in the global role, so nothing new, but now fully dedicated. I also want to take a moment to thank Thomas Faltz and Martina Spinak for their valuable contributions while serving for interim periods on the ExCom. I think they both did a great job representing their businesses, so Thomas and Martina, thank you very much. And now this slide shows the composition of the ExCom going forward in 2023 once these changes are all completed in August. So now, as we move into the future, we'd like to take a few minutes to talk about our culture, which is grounded in our company purpose, pioneers at heart for the good of generations. At the start of today's session, we saw a short video about our pioneering founder, Fritz Henkel. Inspired by our founder, our purpose is built from our roots and continues for its longstanding legacy of innovation, responsibility, and sustainability into the future. While much is changing in the global business environment and also across Henkel, our pioneering spirit remains in place and will be key to future success. We are all pioneers at heart for the good of generations. Our purpose expresses what unites us at Henkel, a diverse team striving to enrich and improve life every day through our products, services, and solutions. We are one company with one purpose, agile and innovative, and leaders who find ways to manage through challenges and changing times. Our strategic framework guides us and will help us to win the 20s with a clear focus on purposeful growth. The main elements of our strategic framework, which we've talked about quite a few times over the last few years on these town halls. The elements are a winning portfolio, a competitive edge in the areas of innovation, sustainability, and digitalization, having a future-ready operating model, and all of that underpinned by a strong foundation of a collaborative culture and empowered people. Beginning this year, we are accelerating the cultural transformation through our leadership commitments, the behaviors we must bring to life to guide decisions and actions every day. So we plan to further shape culture this year. Underlying all that we do and strive for at Henkel is the culture. We need a culture that openly embraces change and sees opportunities rather than challenges. We strive for a healthy culture in which people are collaborating, are empowered, and feel included. Because these are the key ingredients for business success. Because culture matters to all of us at Henkel, not only managers and supervisors. It matters for all of us around the world and also across the North American organization. It is the glue that holds us together. So why are we talking about culture at our town hall today? Well, it's the first full year post-COVID across all the regions. It's the first full year of Henkel Consumer Brands, and as well as a year of change for adhesives And as we just talked about, we're experiencing change in the composition of the North American ExCom. So it's the perfect time to recommit to the leadership commitments and cultural transformation. So let's talk about our progress in this transformation and how we will further shape culture at Henkel. Transforming our culture is a journey that started in 2019 with the introduction of the leadership commitments. The behaviors we must bring to life to shape our culture and guide decisions and actions each day. Our journey continued in 2020 when we introduced our purposeful growth agenda, embedding culture as the foundation of our strategy and aiming to create an environment where teams collaborate and employees feel empowered to drive success. We also conducted an OHI, which is an organizational health index, to provide transparency, identifying what's going well and where we can improve in living by our leadership commitments. In 2021, we defined our purpose, pioneers at heart for the good of generations, to express what unites us at Henkel. And today, we will continue the progress and momentum in our journey as we recreate awareness, engagement, and excitement for our Henkel culture, with purpose and leadership commitments at the core. So now is the right moment to bring all of the teams around the world together and accelerate cultural transformation. Every individual, every team in each country has a role to play to drive change and to shape culture. To connect the dots on how we are driving change and giving more visibility to our actions and progress, we have defined our house of culture. Our purpose is the why. It's the North Star of our business and cultural transformation. Our leadership commitments is the how we want to live up to that purpose. And the what are the initiatives and actions at all levels that enable our success in being pioneers at heart for the good of generations. Accelerate cultural transformation brings together our purpose, leadership commitments, and cultural initiatives under one umbrella. With this common understanding, we are ready to further shape that culture. And everyone has a role to play in transforming this culture. And the change starts with us. So now I'd like to welcome my ExCom colleagues to join in a conversation to reflect on this progress, be open about our challenges, and share their personal perspectives on culture. So I'll address the first question to Bob and Jenny. So you have been serving on the ExCom for some time now, and together with Stefan, who couldn't be here with us today, the three of you together have a combined almost 30 years of experience with Henkel in North America. So maybe you can start off by commenting on how you think culture, leadership commitments, and our purpose directly link to success for Henkel in North America.
Sure. So I'll start. So thanks for the acknowledgement of the number of years. I want to claim to be the youngest. I've been with the company 5 years. And first I'll say in those 5 years, I've seen a cultural transformation taking place, and I've seen it accelerate, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it accelerate more. But I want to draw us back to the core purpose, which I know you talked about a little bit, but when I was thinking about it, I was reminded to go back and do a little digging in my notes. Because when the core purpose was coming together, it was part of a larger strategic initiative that needed to marry up with our purposeful growth agenda, and needed to touch at the heart and soul of everybody working here, because it's our true north, right? It's the North Star. And we have diversified businesses and a diversified set of customers. So what is the one thing that we all have in common? And that's what the purpose was designed to embrace. And as you said, the leadership commitments help us act that out. But I went back into my notes because as we in the CorpCom team were working together with the board to help develop the words behind this, because we're the language folks, there were a lot of thoughts that were captured from the board members themselves about how they thought of things, and a lot of them went into every single word that was selected for our purpose. So you think about the purpose has a few different parts, and I actually brought my notes from when we were creating this. After a series of interviews with the board members and really thinking through the language, there were sort of 3 key things they wanted to get across. So one, of course, is the concept of pioneers. We hear a lot about that, and we even saw it in the video about our founder. And then this generation bit, I think we all can relate to, and Pernilla said it, we need to leave a better place for the next generation. And we have such an opportunity to do that through our products and services. So I wanted to focus for a minute on that piece in the middle. And going back to my notes, I see the words that were sort of brainstormed in the session with the board. It's around the responsibility that we have when we say for the good. It's around the well-being and sustainability of our employees, the community, and the society where we operate. And we think about sustainability a lot. We think about the well-being of our employees. But the one thing I wanted to add, again, uncovering from my notes, was it also is intended to emphasize the trust and the integrity that's inherent in driving a family-owned business, right? So, and that's what our roots are. So that integrity and trust is also embedded in that phrase, for the good. And I think it's really important to remember, because we are a company with a long history, and we wouldn't be if we didn't have all three parts of that purpose working in our favor. So I think obviously close to that is the leadership commitments, but I wanted to start us out with the purpose.
That was very helpful. I think the what is always important, but the why is more important. And you having that insider information sort of as to how these came about is super helpful. I'd like to talk a little bit about the leadership commitments. Unfortunately, I don't have that insider information as to how they were developed. So I have to talk about it from my own perspective as to how they land with me. I believe every person is valuable. I believe every person deserves respect, but I don't believe human beings, the true power of them, come from the individual. And that goes as to whether it's somebody at a customer, an individual, or someone on a production line, or someone sitting at the ExCom. I think that individual employees have deep knowledge, but it's fairly narrow. And folks in senior leadership have broad knowledge, but it's fairly shallow. I think that the most important part of human beings is their ability to work together in small teams really effectively. And those are the environments of trust, of fun, of a mutual obligation, where things can really get done. And when we talk about words like agility or smart risk-taking, those are where those things happen in the small teams. So I think culture is incredibly important. And a culture in North America that allows our small teams to thrive is going to make us wildly successful. And a culture that restricts the small teams or damages them is going to create, problems that are going to be difficult to solve. So I'm a huge fan of leadership commitments, not because I think they're a secret recipe, but if people read them and people follow them, they will unlock the potential of our small teams and unlock the true real power there. So I'm a huge fan.
I like that. If we live them, they will unlock potential that's already there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you both. I'd like to now turn to our audience, those of you joining virtually. You should still be in Slido, but if you're not, please go in now. And we'd like you to now rate your own personal progress in demonstrating the leadership commitments every day at Henkel. Now, this is not the progress of Henkel or the business you're a part of or your team. Think about your own personal progress in demonstrating the leadership commitments. And while you do that in Slido, I'm going to turn to Phil. So Phil, new leader of our Henkel consumer brand, the consumer side of that business, and who joined us earlier this month. Phil, tell us how your leadership style will help you bring the Henkel leadership commitments to life.
Do I have to give away all my secrets in my first week?
Yeah, well, at least some of them.
Yeah. No, hey, transparency is one of them. So I'm happy to share that. And the three attributes that I'm going to share with you are actually very consistent with various teams that I've led around the globe over the last couple of years. Number one, I refer to as leaning in where I'm needed. I don't believe managers should try to spread themselves thin. So naturally, right now, I'm still in the phase of getting to know everyone, right? And I'm trying to understand each and every function. But then there's going to be a point in time where I'll roll up my sleeves and I'll engage heavily with one or two functions more so because I feel I'm needed there. I think it does two things. On the one hand, it builds trust and empowerment with the functions that I leave alone. Let's say marketing doesn't hear from me for a while, right? That's a good sign, the house is in order there. But then there can be challenges that we are facing in other functions, procurement, supply chain, you name it, and I'll lean in heavily there. So that is one of the things that sometimes confuses people about my leadership team, but I hope everyone sees the positive intention and the idea of empowerment behind it. The second attribute that I would like to mention here is candor. And it often gets mixed up with directness, borderline rudeness, and all of the above. But in my mind, candor is a way of showing respect, because you are actually respectful with one of the most valuable goods. You know, I'm not here for fun, to be honest. I'm here to feed my family, and I'm here to also spend time with my family, and I encourage everyone to spend the majority of their time with their families, right? So what you won't see me do is kicking a can down the road. If a project is not working well and we have given it a fair shot and we've tried it, at some point we have to pull the plug. And that requires candor. And I think learning from mistakes is the most important piece. And sometimes it's not even a mistake, you know. Who knew that COVID would hit the marketplace, right? The environment can also change, and then we have to move on to bigger and better things. So candor would be the second one. And then the last piece is culture. And it's so easy to say, oh, relentless focus on culture. Every manager says it these days. But I really mean it. And why do I mean it? There's a very sad statistic in my mind. My generation will spend over 65% of their lifetime at work, you know, versus being with their loved ones. So my idea here is I want to have fun when I work, right? And I want to be surrounded by people who feel comfortable. And I think, I hope not too many of us, but I've been in an environment in the past where I spotted toxic behaviors. And I can tell you, 35 hours a week with toxic behaviors drain you much more than 80 hours and a very busy week with someone who empowers you, who you have fun to work with. And so that is the third pillar of my management style, a relentless focus on culture, and humor will play a certain role there.
Very good. Good, thank you. So now maybe let's take a look and see what the input is from those joining remotely. So maybe I'll look to my ExCom colleagues. Any observations from what you see here? Any thoughts?
So it looks like some people are very confident that they're doing their best to live up to the leadership commitments, familiar with them. Maybe this means there's a commitment to the leadership commitments, and they're a useful tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. And then we still have, I'm trying to read the numbers are a little small for me, but about 25, 26%. If you look from sort of 3 on over, you know, 4 and 5 pretty strong. Maybe not all the way, but fairly strongly implementing. And still about 25, 26% where maybe people recognize room for improvement. So everyone's going to benefit from some team sessions in the coming months. And a little later, we'll come back to that at the end of the panel discussion. So now my next question goes to Martijn and Valeria. You're both relocating to our region after years of experience in other regions as a Henkel leader. How do you see the leadership commitments helping you as you transition to your roles in North America?
Valeria, maybe I give it a start?
Yes, for sure. Go ahead, Martijn.
Okay. So good. I was, of course, reflecting a bit on this. For me, the leadership commitments have been somehow an anchor point. I think, of course, a lot of things are being done on a global level, and I also see sometimes that things are not really ending up in the country, right? Because it's not really tangible and doesn't really, feel like it belongs to us, And this is for me a bit differently with the leadership commitments, and they have also been with me, I think, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? Independently from the countries where I was. And that's also what I see when working with the people in the different countries, with different cultures. I think one thing is in common, that everyone recognizes the leadership commitments. And I think that's actually a great, like I said, anchor point. If I would particularly look to myself, where I relate very much to, and I'm also reflecting a bit on how I went to the company over time, is that, in the company, we typically get on a quite a young age, we get bit of empowerment, which I really appreciate. So we get the empowerment to make decisions. I think that's actually a great asset from Henkel. For me, the empowerment also comes then together with the ownership, right? So one of our commitments, of course, also about ownership of results, and I also really believe in this. I think Bob already you touched on the individual, and I also believe that we all are able and will be able and should contribute to the result of the company with the ownership. So for me, it's always about empowerment, but also coming back to ownership. Secondly, what I think what is great and what relates very much to me is about people, right? Passionate development of people. I think very important as well, because by the end of the day, I think we can only be successful, whether it's in North America or in Chile or in Brazil, any place around the world, if we keep people, if we keep working together, and if we develop people, if we develop talents, right? And I think that's for us also, and for me personally, also a very important topic. And this doesn't go for me, you know, right? We are developing someone in finance. I think we should always look across borders, across functions. And I think we are all benefiting from this. And I think that's, for me, absolutely very important as well. With this, maybe Valeria, maybe you have something to add.
Thank you, Martijn, and thank you, Steve, for the question. As we know, leadership commitments at Henkel set the expectations in the how, no? In how to behave, and what to expect from our people, from ourselves in the organization, and it sets the culture we want to live across all BUs, all functions, across the countries, regions. It's the one Henkel culture we want. And this gives me a great foundation. It makes things easier, especially when moving and when changing countries, coming to a new region, as I am coming now in August, with a new culture for me, what I am not very much familiar with. So additionally, I know that apart from the Henkel culture, every country has its own culture. So, and even within each country, there are differences in culture in different states, in different regions. So something that I learned over the past moves is the importance about connecting these two pieces. So on the one hand, what we had as one Henkel, but at the same time is understanding and connecting with the local culture. So my first weeks in onboarding will be dedicated to that, to connect these two pieces, to listen, to see, to understand, and to visit our sites and to meet our people, to learn from you, and how you live our leadership commitments in North America. Yeah, so Steve, back to you.
Thank you both. Frank, let's put you on the hot seat now. So what progress and changes have you seen in transforming our culture?
Well, it's a fair question. When I think back of when I started 4 years ago, it was a different culture. I remember at the beginning situation where I scratched my head coming from the outside, where I mean someone who is leading like a huge business, like a marketing assistant replacement, was supposed to be approved by board member, right? And I didn't quite get that. And what Martijn said, and also Bob, in terms of empowerment, that felt odd to me, to phrase it mildly. That has changed completely, and I have to say, culture really gets a different trajectory with a tone from the top. And I give our management board lots of credit, because now it's about transparency, it's about showing vulnerability. We had moments just earlier this year where the board was also like sharing with us, they are not perfect, right? They're making mistakes. Carsten very explicitly mentioned a situation which was dear to his heart. So I think there's a complete different tonality now, right? It's a different degree of empowerment. It's giving it back to the regions. It's giving the autonomy back to the business, and I think that's all amazing. It also comes with a degree of responsibility to all of us, right? I mean, Martijn, you said it, we have to deliver, but it's a good thing, right? So I have to say, to me, Henkel in 2023 is certainly completely different in a very positive way when I compare it to 2019. So huge progress.
Yeah. Great to hear your perspective on that. So Pernilla, wait till you come up on the screen there. Where do you see the challenges and opportunities within the adhesives North American culture? And as you take on leadership of the region, as you take over the president role, what are your expectations of the North American ExCom in our cultural journey?
Great question. Thank you, Steve. So I will start with our purpose, pioneers at heart for the good of generations. I think that is probably the main thing that makes me really enjoy what we do, is that we work towards this purpose and we work together towards this purpose. And I think it's a huge opportunity for not only the adhesives business, but also the full Henkel business. There's so many things we can do with our technologies, with our know-how. We have an organization full of great experts who can help our customers with their biggest problems, which are the same as we are facing. How do we leave less of a footprint? How do we use less energy, less water, create less waste, enable recyclability, etc. So all of that links perfectly into our purpose. And I would see that as our biggest opportunity, how we do that. And if I speak specifically about the adhesive business, of course, there's a lot of work that we do in order to look at our own backyard, how we produce. We are committed for 2030 to make sure that we produce in the most optimal way, leave less of footprint. We are committed to make sure that we can offer products that are carbon neutral, and on a very big scale, and it's like a multiplier effect, we are also committed to working with our customers to help them solve their issues on sustainability in terms of, again, energy, water, material use, waste, etc. And of course, across all of that comes transparency. One of you mentioned transparency before in how we work. That also goes for how we work with our customers. And in particular, when it comes to sustainability, we need to be transparent, 100% transparent, in order to show what we do and do what we are telling that we're doing. So I see that probably as the biggest opportunity for us as a team, for us as a purpose, what we're working towards as a team, but also for our business in general. And then I want to touch upon acting as entrepreneurs. That one comes into play in particular when we take pioneers into consideration. Act as entrepreneurs, linked very nicely in my head, at least, to that part of our purpose. And there, I think we still have work to do. We have a very changing market environment, a very changing external environment. We have experienced COVID, supply issues, raw material issues, and all of that, of course, make us all, and that's human behavior, make us focus on solving those issues immediately and make sure that we can run our business day to day. Acting as entrepreneurs means that we need to look a little bit up and out and look at what is coming in the horizon for our customers in our markets and in our industries, and make sure that we dare to test some of these things and test them in a way that if they don't work, we will close them down again, but at least dare to go out and test some of these things. And then finally, you asked me what do I expect from the North American ExCom? I think when we talk about culture, I would also say, what can everyone expect from us? And I'll now volunteer my ExCom colleagues, but I think we should expect from all of us that we showcase how we think that this looks like, what we think that our leadership commitments look like. And I think we should also expect from each other that we engage in the conversation about what this is and how we live it day to day. So we have 4 leadership commitments. We have words describing them on slides. They come to life when we discuss them and when we live them and when we comment on each other, living them, giving each other feedback on living these leadership commitments. So I think that's what we should expect from all of us together, having that dialogue and exchange about our leadership commitments and our culture.
Living it out and holding each other accountable, ourselves accountable and each other. You talked about sustainability at the beginning, and I can tell you that Henkel's focus on sustainability and the long-term outlook of the company is one of the reasons why I've been here 27 years. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Henkel. So thank you all for your insights and thoughts. I'd just like to add one additional thought from my own perspective, and that's that I have seen over my 27 years a significant change in Henkel's culture, for the better, but of course there's always opportunity to enhance the culture. And it really requires, as others have said, each person living it out each day. And the next step here is to continue the dialogue with your teams, and I'd like to turn it over to Frank to explain further.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so what's going to happen next is that we want to introduce a team moment session. And it's exactly what Stephen was referring to. It's a way how to accelerate our cultural transformation. And also reflecting that this is our joint responsibility, right? It's not some sort of top leader job, it's every team. And the team moment is meant to be an opportunity for you to come together as a team to reflect on where we stand in the culture journey. And actually, I was very pleased to see those poll results a little bit earlier with a solid 4 and lots of 5. So I think the leadership commitments are ingrained in our DNA, which I find, again, incredibly encouraging. But also, as Steve mentioned it, there's still room to grow. Take the time with your teams and discuss what works. But even more so, also discuss what doesn't work, right? Think of measures, how to counter those sort of development areas, and have this frank, no pun intended, discussion, right? There's going to be an email sent out to all of managers in the organization. Doesn't matter if it's in an office environment or in the factories, which is going to introduce the details, right? Please do us a favor, participate. It's not mandatory. We didn't want that, right? We also felt it should be your choice, but please make use of it, right? And ideally, please do that before Henkel Day in September, because that's one of the areas where we want to gauge at that point in time where we stand with this initiative. So also, if you have further questions on that, there's the opportunity to do a Slido later. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Steve for the financial update.
Thanks, Frank, and thanks again to all the ExCom members and virtual participants for your comments and engagement. So now, as Frank said, let's transition to the financial update and business updates. And I would typically begin by highlighting the latest publicly reported quarterly financials, but that would be Q1. And I already commented on those in a made podcast that's available on the News Hub. Please note that since we're very close to the end of Q2, we are in what is known as a quiet period, so I'm restricted from providing financial information or commenting on half-year results. But I can say that restoring margins is and will continue to be a top priority across all businesses in 2023. We've seen progress, but there will be a continued focus on that throughout the year. Financial results for the first half will be published in a press release and the News Hub August 10th. And as a reminder, you see on the chart here that this year we have moved to reporting on the 2 business units, Adhesive Technology and Consumer Brands. Through last year, we continued to report on 3 separate business units. And then within each of those 2 business units, we are commenting and reporting externally on 3 business areas within each of those businesses. So just keep that in mind as you see results going forward and read the comments that are published, that's the structure that will be used for external comments. So now let's hear from our business leaders and how their teams are progressing on their strategic agendas. As a reminder, Pernilla will write a report on adhesives, and then Phil on the Henkel consumer brand consumer side. And as I mentioned before, unfortunately, Stefan can't be here, so we won't hear from on the professional business today, but hopefully pretty soon there'll be another opportunity to give an update on the professional business. So Pernilla?
Yeah, thank you very much. I will start with the recent changes in the adhesive part of our business, just to make sure that everyone is up to date. So first of all, we have a new head of the adhesive technologies business, that's Mark Dawn. He took over from Jan Dirk earlier this year. We have reorganized our businesses in adhesive technology. We used to have 11 strategic business units, and we have now organized it into 9. We used to have 4 divisions that we have now reorganized into 3 divisions. So the first division, Mobility and Electronics, is headed up by Carmen. It has 4 strategic business units as part of it, the 2 automotive ones, Electronics and Industrial. Carmen has an additional role as head of APAC. The second one is Packaging and Consumer Goods. I have the pleasure of heading up that division. It has 2 strategic business units, Packaging and Consumer Goods, as part of that business. And as you know, I head up the North American adhesive business. Chaba, he heads up the Craftsman's Construction and Professional division, has 3 SBUs, strategic business units, consumer and craftsman, construction, and general manufacturing and maintenance. And also, in addition to that, Chaba is heading up the regions of IMEA and LATAM. Another change that we made when we made this new setup for the Adhesive Executive Committee was that we created a role for operations and supply chain in the Adhesive Executive Committee, and that one is headed up by Johannes. He is based in Amsterdam. The European Organization for Adhesive Technologies is headed up by Anne, who continues to be our CFO, and Stephanie Sorgnik continues to be our head of human resources. So that's the new organization. If you have questions, you can ask them, but this is how it looks like. The big changes are from 4 to 3 divisions, from 11 to 9 strategic business units, and we have operations and supply chain in the Adhesive Executive Committee called AEC among friends. And then if we go into the business, the next slide, please, I'll talk a little bit about some selected strategic initiatives. And the first one I would like to talk about is our objective to make sure that we collaborate across industries when we innovate, and also that we invite our customers in to engage and inspire and innovate together. And a great example of that was our recent opening of the Technology Center and Customer Experience Center in Bridgewater in May. And that's what you see on the left-hand side of the slide. Some nice pictures. We had approximately 80 customers at that opening. The place was buzzing with life and excitement. And we also had an event for the AEC as well as local elected officials to see this new Technology Center and Customer Experience Center. And just to give you a little bit of what is this. So the Technology Center is 42 chemical labs, 8 heavy labs, and 5 analytical labs in Bridgewater. And the Customer Experience Center is, among others, an affinity room. We have a similar one in Düsseldorf where you can be embraced on full screen experiences about the different technologies and applications that we have across the broad portfolio of the adhesive businesses. And it's also an exhibition about what it looks like, where our products are applied in day-to-day goods. We during the opening, and that's the nice pictures we had our customers going around the site. You see here Eric on the left-hand side showing our analytical lab. You see Jocelyn showing the Infinity Room that I just talked about, the full interactive experience about our applications. And you see Maham leading our customers. She carries a guide flag there to lead our customers through the site. And then you see Michael, who's showing the AEC around the labs. And you see Mark and myself there. So really, really a nice couple of days in Bridgewater. And now, of course, the next step is to invite our customers in and make sure that we use this space to innovate together with our customers. The other example I have pulled out here is really how we have used digitalization to work towards being the easiest and most knowledgeable partner to grow with for our customers. This week, actually, on the 20th of June, we launched the first edition of our digital engagement and conversion platform. So this is to support our growth by making our customers only one click away from either engaging with us, so talk to an expert, get a sample, participate in a webinar, or to buy one of our offerings. And of course, this has been done with the heavy lifting across a number of teams within the adhesives, but also, of course, DX has been heavily involved in this undertaking. So a great milestone with the launch earlier this week. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability. So our sustainability ambition for 2030, we have, among others, and I spoke a little bit about it before, we have leading by example, which is really how do we produce our products and what are our products containing. And I'm here going to use the North American operations as a great showcase for results. Compared to our 2010 baseline, we have seen significant progress in CO2 emission reductions, driven, among others, many different initiatives, the Renewable Energy Purchase Power Agreement that we have made. We also seen much better use of water and as an example, I can mention that in 22 we had several new projects that were implemented in different plants across the US, among others, reverse osmosis water treatment in Warren. And we see a picture here from Warren where Ben is talking about the different things that they have done in that facility when the North American Adhesive Leadership Team visited them last month. So we got a great tour through the Warren plant, and they talked, among others, about all the things that they have done to decrease our footprint. We also have in Cleveland, for instance, implemented higher efficiency pumps, and we have new chillers in Cannon Falls. We have a lot of different initiatives that are all leading to these great results. We've also worked quite intensively of creating or towards our zero waste to landfill, which is now at 72%. The last thing I want to highlight is really customers and sustainability. So as part of the 2030 ambition, we also have leading through technology, and that is where we engage with our customers in order to help them with their footprint. And here the example is Toyota North America, who converted to our thin film pre-treatment in their Lexus plants. It was part of the Toyota Environmental Challenge 2050 because they obtained no less than 25% reduction in water usage. And if you think about how scarce water is these days, it's really, really, really nice and fulfilling when you can help with these things by implementing new technology. So the team also won the 2022 Supplier Partnership Award demonstrating environmental innovation in manufacturing, processes. And who you see here on the picture, you see 2 external award handovers, and then you see Jason and Nick from the team getting this award. And just a small side note, since this award was given, Henkel has been awarded 3 additional lines to use the same thin film technology. So really a nice story of combining very, very good business, tying in customers and helping them with their sustainability targets. And with that, I hand over to Phil.
Thank you, Pernille. Intriguing examples. Now I want to come down and visit you and the team to learn more. Hey, 3 weeks in the job, I can still play the newbie card, so I'll share all the details about the category merge. No, I can't, right? To be honest, I can give you some color on the rationale and maybe apply my retail background on how our merge will be perceived in the industry, right? This slide has been shared before. It shows the rationale why companies typically merge categories. You know, you see the word synergy, talent, channel centricity, growth, profitability, and of course it allows us to sort of show up with our customers as one team. But put yourselves in the shoes of retailers, right? They basically look at suppliers in a list by importance, and typically our GES number, so shipments to the suppliers, define that importance. Let's say it's a list from 1 to 100. In the top 5, you typically see the P&Gs, the Unilevers of the world. Nestle, of course, is always up there as well. And our separate categories, home care being the bigger one, showed, I think it was 88 or 89 there. Guess how excited senior management was when the phone rang and we were calling, right? Not so much. The opportunity to merge and show up with bigger scale allowed us to climb up. So we are now in the low 50s on importance. Still not as high as we show up in Europe, for example, but the combination of building scale between the businesses, but also the talent pool and the contact, allows us to now have above and beyond our fair share of attention with the retailers. I'm 3 weeks in the job. I already had an email in my inbox from Doug McMillan. That doesn't happen too often, that Walmart CEO sends you an email, and that just shows how important the merge was to really generate a bigger standing with our retailers, because in the end, that's where we make our money. On the following slide, I want to share 2 examples with you that were enabled by the category merge, and I'm super excited about them. The left-hand side is a data-driven marketing examples, and for the non-marketing people on the call, I assume that's the vast majority, I want to sort of share how things were handled in the past, okay? So typically, you would identify your broad consumer base, and then some creative people or agencies would write a script. If you had the time, you would test that script with focus groups and would make some fine-tuning. A TV commercial, typically 15 seconds, being shot, costs a lot of money. And then finance people like Steve would release funds so that you can be on air. And the TV commercial runs and runs and runs for a while until it sort of wears out. And most often, finance cuts the funds before, or creative people want to be creative and you just shoot a new commercial because you can, right? But there's no agility in the process. There's no rationale. Which consumer tells you that a TV commercial wears out after 12 months versus 13 or 11, right? Like there's no scientific rationale or no feedback loop enabled. And what the team has now done across both consumer care and beauty is applying a data-driven marketing model with a very tight feedback loop, right? So the new process that we are playing now mostly on Facebook and YouTube is we have segmented our consumer base in a very detailed way. Age groups, demographic, heritage, all those things. And we can now produce creative to target especially those consumer groups, right? Much more narrow than what it used to be in the past. But the new added benefit is that through digital, we get instant feedback. How efficient is it? Do consumers watch it to the end? Do they click the link? Are they happy with it? Do they comment on it? And we can even then learn, and as long as the commercial is up and running, do tweaks, subtitles, end cards, all those things we can add. So it becomes a much tighter ongoing feedback loop to be targeted and relevant to our consumers. And we are testing that as we speak across both subcategories. The other example that I want to share here, and that's near and dear to my heart, is an example around sustainability. And I always get frustrated when people roll their eyes at me when I mention the keyword sustainability. Oh, that costs money, our margins go down the drain, right? And who am I as a non-native speaker to define sustainability? But in my mind, sustainability means also a very mindful use of our resources, right? And using less resources should often save money at the same time. By no means am I saying that we should stop our philanthropic efforts or not give back to the communities, but very often sustainability should be about using less resources. And the example that I want to give here, which was closely related to the category merge, is the consolidation of our warehouse network. We have reduced our CO2 emissions by 8,400 tons. Sounds like a lot. To make it a bit more tangible, we have translated it into gallons of fuel. 1.1 gallons of fuel costs a lot of money at the pump. To make it even more visible, that is 1.5 Olympic swimming pools, right? With the emissions that come with it. So fewer warehouses mean shorter ways, less trucks on the road, less traffic, less pollution. To Pernilla's point, we also have a responsibility for the generations to come. And I love how the team is pushing that. And I can only wait, hopefully in a year from now, we can share even more examples that go into that direction. So with that, because Stefan is not around, I hand over back to Frank.
Thank you very much, Phil. And as always, or as most of the times, we try to also give you an update on where we stand on DEI. And what we shared in the panel discussion, what we are trying to achieve is a transformation of our culture, also to make it more inclusive, right? Make it inclusive for all of our employees, which also is going to drive our success further and propels us to the next level of performance. We always pointed out that creating a sense of belonging to all employees so that they feel empowered and to bring their true selves to work is the ultimate goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion and on our journey. We have a broad strategy to guide us through our journey, which you've seen before. And I also hope that you're making use of the DI newsletter that is being issued on a regular basis and was just the recent version in your inbox. Today I want to pay a particular focus on our employee resource groups, or in short, ERGs, which are such an incredibly important part of our culture, and to drive our DEI efforts and to create a workplace where we can realize the full potential of our entire teams. So reminder, ERGs are voluntary employee-led groups that form typically around a common interest, background, or lived experience. ERGs are meant to create a safe space for our employees to discuss topics and develop skills. Also aligned, obviously, then to the Henkel business agenda. How are ERGs being formed? As I said, led by employees, initiated by employees. Important to know they are open to everyone, right? And it's equally important to be a member of the team, but also allies are invited in. Actually, a very sort of big development over the past few years. And for each ERG, we have an MC1 or an MC2A as an executive sponsor. A few weeks back, we had our second annual ERG symposium in Culver City. It was a multi-day event, meant to listen and learn from another, build relationships and skills, also celebrate achievements, and collaborate further on our DEI journey. I want to thank every ERG member for their passion, for their commitment and efforts you bring to the discussion. I want to also use the opportunity to thank my fellow ExCom members who were in Culver City. We had a very good panel discussion there. I also want to show you a brief video which summarizes the tremendous work that's been done by this group. So let's start the video, please. Thank you very much. So as you saw also on the prior slide, I'm 1,700 colleagues who are now already involved in our ERGs, which is fantastic. And you see how it's been organized with 9 different focus areas. And I can only encourage you to participate and engage. So with that, I also want to use the opportunity to preempt maybe some questions which might sort of be on your minds on the DI side. One is specifically for today with our sort of new ExCom members and the new composition of the ExCom. I heard that people are, I wouldn't say worried, but concerned to a certain degree as it relates to also the lack of US representation, right? When you look at the incoming members now, I have to say the degree of internationalism which is being sort of brought to us is amazing. And I tried to count, I think it was 24 when you guys did your introductions. And lots of Henkel experience, right? So I think that's going to help us tremendously. And on top, of course, with Bob, with Jenny, with Stefan, an enormous sort of depth of US sort of background. And I just want to use the opportunity at least to share my perspective on that. We are in good hands. Right? This is an amazing group of people. And again, the connection to Henkel is super important. The other piece is and it was funny when Phil was yesterday in a talent session, right? Phil reminded me that he's still in a state of a culture shock, having exposure now to a German organization after I think you said 10 years, right? Again, Phil has been in the US for a long time, considers this as his home. We have the similar situation with Stefan Mund, right? So again, I think the composition, it's not a new ExCom, right? But with the new team, we are in good hands. The other piece I wanted to mention, which also was addressed from a DI perspective, is why didn't we use the opportunity when Phil joined us now to make a DI hire, right? And I also can tell you I was involved from the very first moment on in the search, and I reassure you that from a top leadership perspective, and this is obviously on this level, that's a decision and a process that's being driven out of Düsseldorf. the degree of and the commitment to find someone and to be inclusive in the search was absolutely amazing and spot on, right? Ultimately, we interviewed many people from different backgrounds, different experiences, and the decision was made to go for Phil, who has the right experience, especially also on the interface in a multinational organization at this point in time, right? But again, the search was with eyes wide open, and the commitment, when I look especially also on board level, to really have a robust process in this regard, could not have been any higher. With those two comments, I also want to use the opportunity to share some own reflections, because as Stephen said, it's also my last NA ExCom interaction. It's been actually exactly 4 years when I sort of started my Henkel journey. And I have to say, it's been a true pleasure to work, to have worked. I'm not retiring, I have more work ahead of me. But it started in the first 2 weeks in Düsseldorf, where I had a pretty sort of comprehensive meeting agenda. And I came back already after those 2 weeks, energized and with deep sort of gratitude how amazing this organization has accepted me, which also goes in a very similar direction of what Phil was sharing. So many organizations say, what is so special about you, right? It's the people, and you really can't hear that any longer, right? But I think on the Henkel side, that is certainly true. And it continued here in North America, where I had the privilege and the pleasure to meet so many of you who are extraordinarily talented colleagues. I also want to use the opportunity to acknowledge my team. They took me in like a rather weird person who had worked for 10 years prior to joining Henkel as a CHRO of a publishing house, right? Who has started his career as a bankruptcy attorney. So all the reasons to say, we don't need you, right? But I think that's also one of the big pluses of North American and US culture, that we give people a chance. And that's true for the society. I think it's particularly true for Henkel. So the welcome was very warm. I'm also beyond thrilled to introduce Valeria as my successor. Valeria is absolutely amazing. I've worked with her super closely now for 4 years. And Valeria will bring the HR organization here in North America to the next level. And super happy already. Valeria has spent already some time here, and we will continue with that onboarding in the next few weeks. On the other side, it's tough for me personally, I have to say. The US has become our home for the past 15 years. We became citizens 6-7 years ago. My kids, when we came here, two were babies, 2 were born here. They don't know anything else, right? So when the truck came on Wednesday to leave, to transport out a container in the direction of Düsseldorf, it's been tough. It was added with 2 graduations this week, a high school graduation and a middle school graduation. Very intense. And on the other side, I also look forward to the opportunity which is given to me in Düsseldorf. Which brings me to our last aspect. I'm still around, right? And I think you have, it was probably the most expensive traineeship that Henkel ever had. Over the past 4 years, right? I know exactly now what the organization needs. I'm an advocate for North America. I remain an advocate for North America in Düsseldorf, and I very much look forward to that. So with that, I'd like to hand it back to Jenny, I think, for the Q&A.
Hey, we are live, so can I throw in a shameless plug?
Please do.
First and foremost, thank you for everything you have done, Frank. I hope no one can cut this out, but also kudos to the ERGs. Everything that I've seen so far is really inspiring. And this weekend, the Got2Be team, sponsored by the Pride ERG, are actually going to the Pride Parade in New York City. So everyone who wants to join or follow us on LinkedIn as we go, please join. So that is my 10 seconds of fame and a shameless plug for the ERGs. Sorry.
Very topical, thank you, and very timely, terrific. So before we head to Q&A, we want you to have a moment to get back into Slido, so I'm going to help you practice again if you're not already in there. And I want to actually turn the tables and ask the audience a question. So we're looking for some feedback from you. So you should see a question in the Slido, and here again on the screen, you can see how to use the code to enter if you were not already there, or how to enter on a web browser. We'll move right to the questions. So we'd like feedback from you. We will do a survey following the event, but just to give us some real-time feedback, which topic from today's town hall would you like to hear more about? So our new leaders, our cultural transformation, business results, and of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion were our main topics, and we'd love to hear what you think about that. Please enter your thoughts in the poll. And it looks like we're getting close to about 100 people entering feedback. I know there are lots more people listening. And very popular topic every time is our business results. So thank you to our business leaders for sharing, and to Steve for always sharing our financial updates. We do look forward to hearing those in future town halls. The cultural transformation seeming very important as well. Any other thoughts from the room?
No, just say, obviously we couldn't share much in terms of actual financial results today, and I explained why, but I'm certain in the future, the next town hall or event, there'll be an opportunity to cover the results once they become published and available.
Okay, so thank you for that quick feedback, and now we'd like to hear from you about your questions, and I'll turn it over to you, Steve, to moderate.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, so we'll go to Slido, and hopefully you're all logged in and either entering questions or voting on them. So let's look at the top one on the list. We are seeing employees leaving our organization left and right. What are we doing to stay competitive and retain existing talent? Frank, you want to take a first stab at that?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah. How to start? I think, first of all, probably helpful to look at facts, right? And when I look at our current attrition rate, it's on a fairly healthy level, right? And significantly lower compared to, for instance, last year and the year before. Always still, right? We hate to see people go, right? But it's again important to understand we're on a super healthy level. Then we need to consider that we are coming out of a certain sort of like historical like period almost, right? COVID, no one moved, right? After COVID, we had the Great Resignation in North America, where people sort of used the window to also look elsewhere, right? Which they hadn't done during COVID. And then, of course, we had the HCB merger, which was like announced very early, right? Which also left like a lot of room for many of our colleagues to not know exactly what's going to happen. So I think we need to put those things into perspective as well. But at the moment, it's by and large a relatively healthy number. Now, again, as I said, every talent who is leaving us is one too many, right? And when you look at the main reason why are people leaving, 50% roughly, it's about what they tell us in exit survey. It's about development, right? And development comes in many shapes and forms, and that's something we have to improve on as an organization. Sometimes promotions are very relevant and in people's mind, and if they don't get it, they leave. Sometimes it's also about like really getting feedback constantly from also their supervisors. I'm not talking about our mid-year review, our sort of regular processes. I talk about constant feedback, and that's one of the areas I feel we still can improve on as an organization. Like this sharing constant feedback doesn't have to be on a weekly basis, right? But like having this dialogue and talking to our folks and to our teams to say, okay, what's next, right? Where are you struggling? How can I help you? How can we get you to the next level? So this constant dialogue is critically important. So work to be done, but yeah, it's high on our watch list and radar, I would say. Not sure if anyone wants to.
I may build on that. You know, the individual who raised that question said, "What are we doing?" And I like that he or she didn't say, "What are you doing?" Right? Because competitive benchmarking is one side of the story, but as I said earlier, I really find creating an environment that is rewarding is the key to success, and it requires everyone on the line as well to display those behaviors. You know, say good morning as you come into the office or to your workplace, right? Leave your office door open if you're not loud on the phone. Like all those little things, I think also go a long ways. And I was raised in a way, treat others like you want to be treated. And if we do that and apply that to our workplace, that goes long ways above and beyond what competitive benchmarking in the work environment will do.
Yeah. Gets back to what we talked about earlier, where culture matters, right? And how we interact and treat people.
Yeah, and just also one additional comment, if I may, also based on the talent session we had yesterday, I can only encourage also some of you who feel that the development is lacking, right? It's not a one-way street, right? I would encourage you to address this like with your supervisor, with your manager, also directly, right? Development is nothing where employees can lean back and say as an organization, like, develop me, right? So that's another angle. I have seen sort of in exit conversations frustration that no one really spoke to me. But then when you asked, did you address it also to say, okay, what's in for me? There was a little bit of like a quiet moment. So just also keep that in mind, please. That also challenge your manager, challenge your supervisor. You are in charge of your career as well.
And if I can add. Yeah, so to me, it's very much about having a transparent dialogue with each other. And frank, sorry, no pun intended again. But having an honest dialogue with each other about where you see yourself going and how you are performing, how you're feeling in your current job. I think that's one part of it. Respectfully having that dialogue, respectfully giving each other feedback. It's a two-way street. And then I really like what you were saying, Frank, that it's a matter of also reaching out and acquainting yourself with what is out there, speaking to leaders or colleagues in other parts of the organization is quite okay and should be done if you're curious about what's going on in other parts of the organization. And then finally, at least my best career advice has always been to say more yes than no when new challenges come along. Be courageous and try something new. That is usually quite rewarding in a learning perspective, that you see new things and learn new things by trying something that you haven't tried before.
Thank you for those additional comments. Let's go to the next question. Should we expect the Smart Work Guideline to change such that we have to be in the office more frequently? So I can tell you that I have not heard of anything along that line and don't anticipate that as a plan. I think as a company, we are very committed to the Smart Work approach with the target of 60% on-site in the office, 40% remote. As a general guide, Frank, anything else to add to that? No? Yeah. In your global role, no other discussions anywhere else that would contradict that. So I don't think there's any intent to require more than that. With so much international experience in our ExCom, does Henkel have plans to make international assignments in our global headquarters more accessible to North American employees? So anyone have any comments on that?
I can take that. That's indeed an issue. I just had recently a conversation with our head of mobility in Düsseldorf and asked them to provide some data, right, in terms of looking back the past 5 years, and there's work to be done. I cannot go at the moment in more detail, but it is pretty obvious that we have North America as a region where we see a lot of like expats coming in, but we are not sending a good number of people also to headquarters. Point taken, and it's being addressed.
Yeah. I know one thing that we're doing in the finance organization and maybe in other parts of the organization as well is we're doing more short-term assignments. So it's not like that you don't get all of the benefits of going to Düsseldorf or somewhere else for 2 or 3 years, but up to 3 months of going and opportunity to meet people, build a network, and get a little perspective on how things work at the headquarters or other locations. So one opportunity that then you can open up to maybe more people than the longer-term assignments.
It could be, maybe we could have Valeria comment on that if you don't mind, Valeria, because you have had time in a region, then time at headquarters, and then time in a region again recently. So maybe there are some thoughts either from you or from Martijn. You've done the same, where you've taken probably some valuable insight from the country you were in back to headquarters. Maybe you could share a little.
Thank you for that question and for bringing this to me. So for sure, I think that internationality is something that we have at Henkel, and it's great whenever we can make great use of it and leverage it. So I had different experiences. I had also situations, for example, in Latin America, where we were not necessarily exporting talents and always being the ones receiving. Nowadays, and Frank knows the situation, it's quite different. And whenever we have, or we do not have the situation for moving out, or going into an expat assignment. So there are also different ways of moving. So we have, and we have seen this also in headquarters, people coming as local, so localizations driven by employees, short-term assignments, as we were saying before. So there are different ways of moving around or having this international, let's say, connection. But for sure, as Frank said, we will need to explore how can we do this in a better way here.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Maybe Jenny, I also add my perspective of this. I think it's actually a very valid question, right? And I think it's very spot on. And I think there's a below fair share of North American people in headquarters, which I think is not right. And I think we should also solve this, frankly speaking. How did we get there? From my perspective, sometimes people are thinking too much in the narrative of their own small department, and they say, it's, you know, there's a monetary disadvantage if you send someone from the US or from Canada. I think we should get out of this, right? I mean, we are doing this for the company. We are doing this to make the company better, to make North America better. And that's why we should get out of that small narrative. And I think that's key to solve this. And I'm also convinced with Frank moving to headquarters in his role, we will be able to solve it.
At least influence. Yeah. All right, let's move. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move to the next. Okay, we'll move to the next question. So competitors spend large amounts on marketing their products and appear to be increasing their market share. Do we have funds to build greater awareness in North America? So it sounds like a more consumer-based question. So Phil, you want to respond to that?
The answer is yes. Yeah, we do have the funds, and not only that, we deploy them. In fact, this year alone, we increased our line 17. I just learned to not use the word brand building anymore. So our line 17 deployment by over $40 million. So we are doing that right now. And we are trying to do that in the most efficient way. So we measure closely the ROIs, brand per brand, channel by channel. And that's how we deploy the funds. So we absolutely have the funds to be competitive, but there's also the concept of sufficiency, right? So you also don't want to over-invest and throw the money out of the window. So our marketing teams and media buying teams measure that very closely to get the best bang for our bucks.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier in my brief financial comments that one of the focuses this year across all businesses is enhancing margins. And how do you get funds to invest in marketing or increase profitability? By improving your margins. So that's a enabler to do what was asked about. So next question, how does Henkel plan to recognize Juneteenth as a holiday? Anyone on the ExCom have any comments on that?
I'm happy
It's come up in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things which I happily sort of hand over to Valeria to resolve is the harmonization of holiday schedules. It's absolutely insanity, if you permit me to say that, right? And it's a result of merger and acquisition after acquisition after acquisition. So I think currently we have in North America, I think 13 different holiday schedules, right? I tried it in year 1, I failed. I tried it in year 2, I failed. So you get the story, right? Because the question is, of course, when you want to harmonize a holiday schedule, right? It goes like against certain like interest in a particular community, right? Which we tried also as a, like, you could argue being diverse, right? To accept also the differences. But in terms of Juneteenth, for instance, right? Juneteenth, you also have the situation that we have a certain amount of holidays available, also from a financial perspective, quite frankly, and it's not an option to say, okay, we just add one, right? We are too large. We're not sort of honoring or implementing all of the federal holidays, right? So we have to make choices, and that's something, again, we try one more time, and to say maybe there is a shifting of holidays, but it's also, quite frankly, you can't get this right? Are you taking then President's Day away, and you take, so it's we have Martin Luther King Day, so it's complicated. It sounds simple, it is not. But I'm sure, like, I'll use humor time now. So Valeria will solve it. I'm absolutely convinced.
Yeah, and we do have a floating holiday, I think.
We have floating holidays, and
So
sorry,
people
just
can
on a more serious note also, right? I mean, Juneteenth, what we try to do in all of our sites, and many of our sites, is to celebrate it, to acknowledge it, right? Because, of course, that's one of the things, especially after the murder of George Floyd, which we as an organization also felt strongly about. So we are not taking this lightly. I just don't want to leave you with a wrong impression.
Yeah. So we'll do at least one more question, and I think this is directed to Pernilla and to Phil. We saw an increase in revenue in Q1, mainly driven by price, not increase in volume. What are we doing to increase volumes? So one of you want to address
Should
that?
I start, Phil? All right. So yes, it's true that we did see an increase in revenue, and it was mainly driven by price in the adhesive technology business. We also see that we are struggling in some parts of the business on volume. And there's a couple of things that we are doing to make sure that we have this managed and that we are ready for when volumes are picking up again. So first of all, we try to understand why are volumes dropping. We stay super close to our customers, and these are, of course, I mean, it's mainly a big part of it is business to business. So we stay very, very close to our customers to understand where the volume decline, if any, is coming from, when we expect to pick it up again, and basically just stay very, very close to our customers to make sure that that the volume decline we see is a market decline and not a market share decline. So that's one thing. Then, of course, this is, as always, a very, very good opportunity to make sure that we have the sharpest possible value proposition to our customers. So what are we offering them? Why are we offering it to them? And what problems do we solve at our customers when we offer them a value proposition? We look at how we can take market share. So in some areas of our business, there's still market share to be gained in most areas, of course, but and make sure that we gain that where we can. And then on the long-term perspective, which won't come through this year, but of course we're looking at innovation. How do we run our business in terms of business models? What do we offer to our customers? Not only products, but also services. I talked a couple of times about the amazing amount of expertise we have in the organization. We know our products very well, we know our chemistry very well, and we know our customers' processes and production processes very, very well. And that is a very, very good combination to create new value propositions. So based on products, services, consultancy, equipment, and data at the end of the day when we can put all of that together. So that's, of course, the long-term perspective on this. Over to you, Phil.
Yeah, everything that Pernilla said. No, I think, sitting between two finance sharks, the definition of an inflationary environment is that the buying power of your money decreases, okay? And so you basically can buy less product for the same amount of money that is out there, right? And we are feeling that, right? So that in itself doesn't make me overly nervous. I've seen that in other industries, and if you follow our competitors' quarterly reports, you see that there as well. To Pernille's point, market share is a good measure to sort of see how you're tracking against the market trends, right? Where we have to be careful is we don't want to get close to the tipping point that the volume decline hits us even harder with fixed overhead allocation in our production sites. And that's why, to the earlier question that I answered on brand building, while we have to fuel our brands to get the volumes back on track, and then GSV will grow even disproportionately. So it's a good comment. It's not an uncommon thing right now in the industry, but rest assured we monitor that closely.
All right, I think we'll take one last question, and I'm going to pick one related to portfolio. So in North America, we are shedding brands, and I think that must refer to, we've had 3 or 4 smaller, relatively small in terms of size of business, but we've had some divestments over the last 9 to 12 months. I think that's what that's referring to, that are unprofitable and or no longer fit our profile. Are there any plans underway in North America to acquire or launch additional brands? I'll make a comment about acquisition, and maybe the business people can talk about the idea of launching additional brands. I can tell you that my finance team gets involved early on due diligence of any potential acquisition targets, and the team is constantly reviewing potential targets. So the intent and desire to acquire is still there, but it takes the right target that's a strategic fit at the right price. So over the last, I don't know when the last one was, has it been a couple years maybe since we've had an acquisition? A year and a half to 2 years or so. So we haven't had any in that period. That's not to say that we haven't looked at targets and evaluated, and some have come close, but just not come to completion. So yes, acquisitions still are on the radar, and across all the businesses, there's a lot of activity, and we'll see. I would anticipate that we'll see more acquisitions in the short term and in the future. Any comments about additional brands?
No, just before we go to the brands, just also one comment, Steve. What I also find super encouraging when you hear board members like talking about North America, right? Yeah. That's always mentioned in the context of growth, right? If you compare sort of our portfolio, like globally from an entry perspective, right? North America is seen as a growth potential and region, and that's super encouraging, right? And I think that goes exactly in your direction to say, you know what? Yes. There's the willingness to be bigger, right, and to invest, but it needs to fit, right? Yeah. But I think from a board management, from a board perspective, I only see like the green lights and the smiles. Also when Carsten was here, right? I mean that's a story we keep hearing, which I think is super positive.
Yeah, from a broader perspective, you think about investments in North America. Acquisitions are still, there's still a desire to acquire and grow in North America. Significant capital investments in our production and supply chain capabilities. And, we saw the renovations in Bridgewater and plans in the coming years for other sites as well. So a lot of investments into North America shows how important it is to Henkel.
Maybe one quick thing, because the legal department obviously gets in early on this, and not to talk about specifics, but trending, I would say interest is trending higher. Opportunity, real opportunity, is trending lower. And for those of us in the US, it's similar to buying a house right now. There's a lot of people that would like to buy a house, and the opportunities to buy something that's reasonable and is what people are looking for just isn't there. So I think that's what's really going on right now. Not in any way a lack of interest, but trying to be smart about what does get purchased.
Got to buy something for the right price.
Absolutely.
The right thing for the right price.
Thanks for rubbing in how difficult it is to absolutely spot on. If the individual was fearing that the company indicates that we would manage North America for profit or so, that is absolutely not the case. It's a place to invest. Otherwise, I honestly wouldn't even have signed. But again, to your point, those targets don't grow on trees. And in the second half of the question, you saw that the question was also, do we launch new brands out of our own strength. That is something that the team constantly looks at, but it's also not that easy, right? I read an article that in our industry, out of 30 brands that are being launched, only one survives year 2, right? And typically you need line 17 support in the early years. So whatever the efforts are, you want to do it in a very meaningful way, because only if it sticks, it becomes a profitable business case, whether you launch brands from your own strength or if you acquire a target, it requires a ton of due diligence.
Great. Well, I think we'll wrap up the Q&A session. So thank you everyone for all the questions and your engagement and participation. There are a number of questions that haven't been answered, but we will try to provide answers for the most pressing questions over the next few weeks on the News Hub, as we have in previous, after previous town halls. So just in closing, go to the next chart. Yes. Yeah, reminder, I think this is still true, right? So later today, I think everyone's going to receive a survey by email where we can hear your feedback on today's town hall, and that will help set agenda for future town halls and meetings. And I'd like to just say one final word. This is my last town hall, and once again, I want to thank everyone for friendship, for partnership over the years. Thank you to all of my ExCom colleagues. I really enjoyed working with all of you and as a group. Both here and those that are remote as well. I wish everyone a great weekend and all the best and very successful future for Henkel in North America. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.